Welcome to Doors to Hope and Healing, an inside look at foster care and adoption needs in Connecticut. My name is Jacqueline Ford. I have had the honor of working for the department for close to 30 years, and although I may be familiar with many of the topics I bring to you, I have invited experts in those fields to help dispel the myths and misconceptions that often act as barriers. Join us as we open our doors to an inside look at the Department of Children and Families. Hi, thank you both for joining me on Doors to Hope and Healing today. This is really part 2 of a 2-part series on Adoption Awareness Month. We've already recorded a show talking about National Adoption Month and National Adoption Day and all that goes into planning for that. So today we're going to talk about what actually adoption is all about and how we do some matches. So we have Katie and Nadej here. And Nadej, I'd like to start with you. How long have you been with DCF?
I've been with DCF for over 14 years now.
And what role do you have right now at DCF?
I am currently an adoption matcher. For the state. I cover all 6 regions.
And that must be a big job.
It is.
A busy job for you.
Yes, it is.
So tell us about that. Tell us how the matching process goes.
So pretty much what happened is when the region, when the plan is adoption for a child, the region will contact me. I will then go into the child's record, our electronic records, and review the child's information. What's going on with the bio family and the reason a pre-adoptive home is needed for that child. Then I would match that child. I would do what's called a paper match. I would match the child to the families that we have in our registry that fits that child's demographic and that child's age and so on. And then I would send that out to the region and saying here's the amount of families that I have that is a paper match to that child. And then the region would wait for the families to then say whether or not they are willing to move forward with the teaming process. And once they are willing to move forward, a teaming would occur and a family would be picked for that child.
And how does that teaming process work?
So the way the teaming process works is that we have members of our agency that are part of a teaming group in each region. Each region has a team. And that team could be the child. It is definitely the child social worker, the supervisor, and there's other key members. It could be our regional resource group, our mental health specialist. So there's a number of folks that's part of that teaming process. And once we have our top 5 families that is willing to be part of that teaming, then the team occur. And what it is you review the studies for each family, and then the team as a group pick the top family for that child.
As far as who would match best with that child?
Yes.
So going back to what you had said earlier, so when a family is chosen as a match for a potential child who's needing that forever family,
yes,
that family is notified that they're going to be teamed?
Yes, they are notified. Their support worker will contact them, say, we've received a match, here's the child's information, are you interested? Then they would let the support worker know they're interested. The support worker would let all of us know. And this is done electronically through email and phone calls as well. And once, again, we have all our interested parties, we only need 5 families per team. Maximum 5 families. We could have less, we could have 1 or 2 families before the team occur.
And then when that telephone call is made and a family is selected for that child, is it full disclosure at that point about what that child's needs are?
Yeah, so once a family is selected at team, then it is the social worker, supervisor of that child, working with that child, and the support worker working with the pre-adoptive family. They set up a meeting, they discuss what we call a full disclosure, meaning everything they can possibly provide to the pre-adoptive family about that child.
And then you move on to the...
And then they move on. The family has the right to decide whether or not, one more time, are they willing to move forward with placement. If they are, then other meetings are set up where they might meet the child once they meet the worker and discuss all the medical, educational, biological, legal risks that comes with this child, then they could decide to move forward with placement.
And is adoption finalized right away, or is there a waiting period?
No, it's not finalized. So our kids come to us at all level of legal risk. So there are kids that come to us at what we call a 96-hour hold, where they just got removed. We're not sure what's going to happen, but based on the biological family history, the region may feel that adoption might be the plan. So at that point, it's a high legal risk because, again, it's a temporary legal status that we have, which is called 96-hour hold. We also have the other temporary custody, which means, again, temporary is what it is. The termination of parental right has not been filed, and that, again, that's another legal risk. So there's different legal risks that are attached to our kids. So the family is also providing that information and make sure that this is something they want to move forward.
Because not every family is comfortable taking in a child with a high level of legal risk.
No.
So they have to be comfortable with that legal standing for that child. They
have to understand that although the child might be in DCF care, that the bio family still have certain rights. They still have a right to visit that child. We are court-ordered to provide them visitation after we remove a child, and there's no set time as to when a TPR might be filed and that adoption will be finalized. And adoption is not guaranteed. We tell our families that this is why it's high legal risk, because we call it legal risk home, because there's no definitive at that point.
And we do have children that there is no legal risk because their termination of parental rights has been granted.
Yes.
But that's not always
the case.
Right, and especially with our younger kids.
Yes.
It's much different.
Yes.
So we'll come back to you in a moment. But Katie, thank you for being here.
Thank you.
So from what I understand, you're not only an adoptive parent, you're also, an adoptive parent, but you're also a DCF social worker.
Yes.
So where do you work at DCF?
I work in the Milford office. I'm a supervisor in the Milford office. I've been with the department for over 15 years now. And currently I have ongoing in cases that are transferred from our investigations unit, intake unit, to ongoing services. So I am currently a supervisor of ongoing cases.
Where children could still be with their families.
Yes. So and actually in my unit right now we have a variety of different cases. Everything from kids that we are trying to preserve their homes and keep them in their homes with their family, to relative placements, to out-of-home placements with non-relatives, and we have different variances where we are also with children being reunified or staying home, being reunified home. We also have some children that their parental rights have been terminated of their parents, and we're looking to adopt or figure out a permanency plan with them. So I have a variety of every single type of case probably that DCF has.
That is definitely across the board a reflection of that. So Katie, what made you want to become an adoptive parent?
I think, what it came back to is I always wanted to be a parent. I think from when I was a little girl, how and when that was going to happen, I didn't have necessarily the answer, and time goes on and life goes on. Especially being an adoptive parent, though, I think there was a couple things that were the catalyst to that. Working at DCF, seeing our children come in and and then thinking and going to my own family and saying, I think we could be a permanent forever family to a child here in Connecticut, and having that exposure and that experience with what I do, that was definitely a catalyst. And I think when the final decision to actually go ahead and pursue adoption was really just it was something I had watched, believe it or not, Sandra Bullock, who was doing an interview, and I love her, and she was doing an interview about adopting from foster care, and it kind of struck inside of me too. I was like, I can do this. This is something, I think my child is there, and it's not in the traditional route of having a biological child. So it was, like I said, I was working for DCF. It was a couple of little catalysts of things that happened in my own life that I said, I think our path is this other path.
And there you are.
And there I am.
And I think that, given your experience at DCF and for how many years that you've been employed in the cases that you supervise, you definitely have a view into the types of children that DCF deals with. So, you definitely come in with that knowledge and that compassionate heart to really be able to help our kids. So for our viewers who are watching, can you walk us through the process to become involved in that process of becoming a licensed foster or adoptive parent?
So first you have to be willing, right? You have to have the open your home. And then the first step is really, with me, it was, even though I work with DCF, I still have the same process that anybody would have to go through. So I picked up the phone and it was like, what can I do? And where's the first open house I can go to? So I found out, information about going to an open house, and there's so many throughout Connecticut that you could attend. And I found out where I should go, and I as far as where I needed to go for that. So my husband and I went to an open house first, got our information. And then from there, we signed up. We had somebody actually come out from DCF, actually somebody that I started with here. So it was, she came out, she did our preliminary, talking with us and gathering our information. And then from that, then we signed up for our classes that we needed to take in order to become licensed foster and adoptive parents. And in Connecticut, just know that we have to become licensed foster first, because in the route we take on a foster child before actually adoption happens, unlike in the private sector where it's just straight adoption and you're going right for the adoption. We ended up doing our TIPS MAPS classes.
And how many weeks was that?
We had actually 16. They added extras where I was, because we got a little kind of extras to give us a head start on the process. So we started in March of a couple years ago. We started in March, and we were done by May with our CPR class, which was our last class. We went weekly. We went 3 hours on a Wednesday, and we were with other families. They're all completely, similar with what they were looking for. We were in a class of people who were looking to just foster, and some that were looking to adopt, and some that didn't make up their mind. Once we did our classes, and then we weren't licensed yet, so there's still a process. After we finished our classes, then we had to do our interviews for our home study that everybody has written for them. So we went through that process. We ended up being, after our interviews and our home study was completed and all the checks and everything has to be done, and there's a lot of little checks, but it's okay. DCF walks you right through it. I had to make sure I stayed in my lane.
Yes, I know, which could be hard to do.
Stay in your lane, Katie. You're not. Stayed in my lane. Went through the process. We had a great for our foster care and adoption worker who walked us through everything, helped us. We were then November. I feel like November is always our month. November of 2017, we were licensed, and about a week later, we found out about our little guy. Christopher. We were told about Christopher, and that there was interest in the department moving forward to terminating parental rights of his biological parents. And if we were interested in going to teaming whenever that happened. The teaming didn't happen for a little bit.
If I can just walk you back a little bit. So the training that you went through for all those weeks, it was called TIPS MAP. That's the name of the training module that you go through.
Yes.
And then when you were officially licensed, you were licensed to foster with the intention of adopting?
Yes, so you could be, and how the department does it is, if you're licensed to foster or licensed to adopt. So my license was, in our license, my husband and I was licensed for an adoption license. So that we weren't being called for foster children that needed placement, temporary placement. The only calls that we would get would be intended for the department, intended for
permanency.
Going for permanency.
Right. So when you go through that training and in your classes, you could have people that just want to foster, which is a very temporary relationship with a child with the goal of reunification. And then other people could be licensed to adopt, which is what your license was, with the intention of keeping whatever child is placed with you. But you still have that fostering role because nothing is final until that child's rights are terminated and you're in that adoption process. So once you were identified for Christopher and you had that teaming and you and your husband were chosen for him, what was that call like that you received that said you were chosen for Christopher?
I remember exactly. I had just done another thing I do for DCF. I do mandated reporter training. So I was out at the community doing mandated reporter training at a firehouse, and so and I got the call, and I was like, I mean, you knew it was happening, but like it's still the final. You wait and you wait, and you go, oh, is this gonna happen? And then it happens, and I go, oh my God, this happened. Wait,
it's real.
I go, wait. And I call my husband, and I said, and I was like, it happened, and he goes, oh boy. So, but it's an incredible feeling, and it's just, I think with us, it has been the entire thing has been incredible. I have been able to work-wise, it's influenced me with the work I do. Mm-hmm. It's influenced our family. It's been such a natural process. You look at there's a lot to go through the process of becoming a foster or adoptive home, but when it's said and you get that phone call and that amazing thing, it's just like you're like, oh, it did happen. It happened the way it was supposed to happen.
And how long after that call that you were selected did Christopher come and move in with you?
He was with us, I think, in 2 weeks. We first went to meet him because we had to meet him.
And he was a year old at that time?
No, he was only 6 months.
Oh,
He was only 6 months, and he had just turned 6 months when we met him. And I had known about him when he was 4 months, actually. So it was 2 months from the time I actually knew that he was potentially there, that, and then he was 6 months. And we went to his foster home, wonderful foster home, and we met him, and we held him, and he fit in the crook of my arm, and that was it. that was completely it. And then we had to wait. We felt that was the best thing to do. So then we returned, and together we had a party at the where he was fostered. My family came, and we went to his foster home, and we had a party. They had a party for us, and we took him home that night.
What the foster parent was in a New Haven family?
No, out of Norwich.
Okay.
So out of Norwich. Our license is actually out of the Middletown office. For DCF employees, it's a little bit different. I needed to go somewhere where I didn't work.
Yes,
so
yes.
I had not worked yet in the Middletown office. So
that's where your case
that was. And then so happened, and in the process, it's all Connecticut. So when you're licensed it's any child in Connecticut that could come in to care. And during your licensing process, you get a say in what types of child or children you're looking for. If you're looking for siblings, if you're looking for, as far as what types of special needs, if you're not, everything, what you would be, in the biological family's mental health or medical history, the things that you would willing or you think you can parent, that's all discussed ahead of time.
Which is what Nadej had walked us through with that, the matching process, because, we're not in a business to find a child for a family, we're in the business to find a home and a family for our children.
Yes.
So we want to know with our licensed families who would be a great match for that child, who is willing and able to meet a disability that child has or is comfortable with a gender or a culture. So that's why, what Christopher's needs were matched with what you and your family felt that you could handle.
Yes.
And that's how that you were selected for him, which is beautiful. So it was in November that he was placed with you of that year?
He was placed with us in January. So it was November in which we learned
licensed.
about him, and licensed, all at this around the same time. And then we were the teaming that we had to go to, or we were notified of, happened in in January, yes. So in January, right after Christmas. So in January of 2019, he was teamed, and we were picked for him. And then that he came to us in January.
So now let's fast forward to November of that year.
Yes.
You were asked to adopt Christopher at National Adoption Day.
Yes.
Which in our previous segment we talked about and what National Adoption Day is. So for our viewers who are just tuning in, it's a day set aside to finalize adoptions in Connecticut nationwide. And we do it here in Connecticut where all the courts open their doors and they schedule adoptions on this day. And we ask the families to share their stories with the media. And we invite the media to come in and capture that. And that's not for all families. Not all families want to share that very private and personal experience with the media. So those that are, we embrace that because you're great spokespeople for our agency. You know, you help us create that awareness and capture the hearts of people who are considering adopting. So tell us, we have pictures here of Christopher, who is absolutely adorable. He is such a cutie. He's Superman, and it says Superman was adopted too.
Yes.
So you must have had a party for him
Yes.
with that theme. And taking us to that court date, here is a picture of all of you at Adoption Day.
Yes.
So tell us what this day was like.
It was, so it's a really special day. When we knew we were able to adopt Christopher, we said, why don't we do it big? And there was no bigger time to do it than to do it on National Adoption Day. He will always, I want him to be proud of being adopted, and I want that to be something, you know, we work as to normalize adoption and to make it a really great thing. So that's how we picked National Adoption Day, because it was like, let's just do it. And the day was in, you say we had gone to court, we all dressed up, we got the family. I have my husband and I, we have 3 other adult children with Christopher, so they all came as well. My family, my father was there. I had my sisters, my siblings, everybody came, and we got to go into court, and it's such a nicer. The court is, so for me, I know what court's like from my position, but to go in that type of position and that type of roles was really nice. It's really relaxed. You get like a special attention. The marshals give you a special attention.
Yeah.
It was like Christopher was a little celebrity, and of course, and he's a ham, so he was, he just loved the day. We went in. And it was really just a special day that we were able to sit there in court, just our family. The judge gave us special time and got to take pictures.
And you finalized your family.
And it was fantastic. And then afterwards, we had a reception. So, because said, we're going to do it big, we're going to do it big.
And that was the Superman picture.
Yes,
the Superman was adopted too.
Yep, so the whole thing was Superman. We had a big reception for him, and we invited anybody who couldn't come to court, because court can only fit
so many people,
so many.
right?
So it was, we had, you know, and I feel like the picture, we had a lot of people, but there was lots of people. Everybody, our friends and our family, just were ecstatic for us and went through the process, because of course I don't mind talking about things, so they knew exactly what we were doing. So
well, thank you. And before we end today, can you just tell us how many families we have currently licensed on the registry?
So currently we have 41 families
41
active and
Okay.
licensed. Yeah.
So for any of our viewers watching us, we need to make that number bigger. We need more families in Connecticut who are willing to adopt. And if any of our viewers are watching, they can call the 1-888-KID-HERO number to learn all about that process that Katie had walked us through.
Yes.
So thank you all so much for being with us today. It's been great to hear your stories, and you are both wonderful messengers of the need that we have for more foster and adoptive families. We'd now like to introduce you to Jesus, who is a young man who is looking for his forever home. If you're interested in learning more about him, you can call 888-KID-HERO or visit us at ctfosteradopt.com. Thank you for watching.
I like to go hiking. I like bike riding. Some things I like to do outside are like trying to build some stuff, like a little miniature fort. I like dogs and cats, horses, mostly any type of animal, and reptiles. The perfect home for me is like an old house, like kind of like a rustic type of house. I really like old stuff. I like old movies, old games, old music. My favorite song is Sound of Silence by Simon and Garfunkel. I like science and reading. I like a lot of books, like chapter books. And I like to hear about stories about other people, like what they've been through. The kind of family I'll be looking for is a mom and dad and older siblings, the one that I go have fun with. I would like a mom who is very nice to animals and me. The dad I would like is very funny type of dad and very creative. I like to build stuff. The nicest thing that anybody ever said to me, that I look cute in my glasses. Please adopt me so I can have a good life, a good home, some good family.